and welcome to the program. I'm Vivica Williams, and now for Canada. This is a very special year. The country is marking its 150th anniversary of Confederation. But that's not the only reason to celebrate. Ukraine and Canada are soon to significantly strengthen economic ties with a free trade agreement. And this is a long anticipated and somewhat historic deal. So here to talk about both of these topics is Roman Waschuk. He's the Ambassador of Canada to Ukraine, and he's joining us here today in the studio. Thank you so much for being with us today.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. So the first thing I want to talk with you about is 150 years. Yes?
Canada is at once a rather old country in terms of a stable constitutional order, but of course compared to
Ukraine.
Compared to Ukraine, well, in terms of our architecture, et cetera, it's rather newer. On the other hand, we also have very ancient traditions of our Aboriginal peoples.
Right.
So, we try and bring together these different strands of our past. We're looking at our 150th anniversary. We're also looking at reconciliation and rebuilding links with Canada's Indigenous peoples. That's a priority of this year's celebrations as well. Sort of recognizing where we haven't always done that well in our past, but also celebrating what we do well, which is live together and try to create a society of equal opportunity for people.
Wonderful. And as we know, all of Ukraine, Canada is home to many Ukrainians. I mixed this up because it is somewhat a second Ukraine in some ways.
For some people, especially out west, areas of rural settlement where Ukrainians settled en masse in the late 19th century, early 20th century, and landscapes are pretty similar. There's a Ukrainian historian who now lives in Edmonton who says some of the landscapes around there reminder of Western Ukraine, the rolling hills, plus the regular churches with their domes, golden domes. So yeah, there is that. But, we're a North American country of opportunity.
Absolutely.
And we think that it's also incumbent on us to help share that opportunity with others, and especially with a country like Ukraine that has done so much to contribute people and ideas to our own national development.
And so here we see now with the 150 years of anniversary of Confederation in Canada and with the history you have with Ukraine. So how is this celebration going to carry out here in Ukraine? I'm sure there's going to be a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, and a lot of it is designed to bring in the Ukrainian public here in Kyiv. So we're going to start off on the 11th of June.
A very historic day for Ukraine in general.
Right, and indeed, the visa-free regulations enter into force. We hope somebody will be left to take part in our own celebrations, which is a street fair on the street in front of our embassy, Kostelna, here in Kyiv. And we're doing that together with the embassies of France and Switzerland. It's a kind of a Rue de la Francophonie, a kind of Francophonie theme along our street. So the street's closed off, and it's a street fair. We'll be having a Canadian sugar shack. We'll be having some products. You can buy some hockey jerseys, specially Canada-Ukraine 150 themed, and foreshadowing another one of our events coming up later. We'll also be having an event on the 20th of June dedicated to World Refugee Day, doing it together with the UN High Commissioner on Refugees, portraying Canada's record in welcoming people of various backgrounds, from Ukrainians after World War II, that would include my parents, to 40,000 Syrian refugees most recently.
Oh, wow. So that's very good intake of people from around the world, a very broad, diverse population.
That's right. You have a city, you were mentioning Toronto. Well, Toronto is second nature to very many other cultures. 51 or 52% of the population of Toronto are born outside Canada.
Oh, wow.
So, and again, it takes a special kind of civic culture to ensure that all of those people from very different places and backgrounds feel not obliged, but feel like it's fun and a good idea to live together in harmony.
Absolutely. This is a wonderful idea. And what other events do you have planned for this celebration?
Well, after that, more hockey.
More hockey, of course.
We're doing street hockey on Chrещатик, which is, of course, the main drag here in downtown Kyiv. Right in front of City Hall, we'll have a hockey rink set up. No ice, but it'll be street hockey, ball hockey. Any Canadian will know from having set up some nets on their side streets over the summer what that's all about. We'll have teams from the Canadian Forces, their trainers who are here in Ukraine, Canadian Police, the RCMP and Municipal Police who are here. We'll have Kyiv Sokol Hockey School. We'll have some of the Ukrainian athletes who'll be taking part in the Invictus Games later in the year in Toronto. So, as well as just ordinary Kyivans, maybe even ordinary not-so-skilled diplomats like me and my colleagues who'll be allowed to pick up a stick and do some hacking around.
Oh, we're going to have to see that. And you mentioned that some of the Canadian troops and some of the Canadian police will be participating. What role are they here playing in Ukraine?
We have 200 Canadian military trainers, mostly in the west of the country, in Yavorov and Kamenets-Podilsky. But we're looking at how they can, go from the tactical level to the more operational or strategic level in helping the Ukrainian armed forces improve. We have probably about a dozen Canadian police now mentoring their Ukrainian counterparts in the patrol police especially, helping them deal with the challenges that come up. Policing is a very unpredictable, dangerous, challenging line of work. And our cops are people with 20, 25 years experience.
Oh, wow.
Working with Ukrainian counterparts who are very well educated, but fresh to patrol policing. And so there's a bit of an exchange going on there.
Well, and the experience helps, and also that idea of building community and working within diverse communities, which
that's right.
They come with a very good background.
Exactly. Community policing is really one of the hallmarks of what we're doing here in Ukraine.
And we see that in the reform that the Ukrainian patrol is doing very good with bringing in this community aspect of policing. So they've gotten some very good mentoring.
We hope so.
And let's talk a bit about the free trade agreement. So we have just this amazing time going on with the activities and cooperation with Canada. Tell us a little about the free trade agreement that Canada has just ratified. Yes.
Well, and our Canada 150 thing segues into that in a way, because just on the same day as we're going to be doing the hockey tournament, we're going to be opening a Canada retail exhibit at the Central Department Store at Tsum, also right next to City Hall, with some 10 Canadian brands of stuff you might like. Maybe a bit out of season, your skidoo to buy for the winter, but also the sea-doos that are available for the Dnipro or the Black Sea.
Well, maple syrup, I hope.
Maple syrup,
featured.
No doubt about that.
Oh,
we got that. We've got some seafood, some Canadian lobster,
so
shrimp.
we can look forward to soon having more access to some Canadian
We're
products.
encouraging that, plus some, again, winter wear, you got to think ahead, some Canada Goose,
We're
some
trying not to.
Arctic Gold.
June just started. We're trying not to think too far ahead.
Yeah, well, so we're trying to show people that there's stuff from Canada you can buy. Some Ford products that are sold here, cars are made in Canada, so everything from car-size stuff to a bottle of maple syrup, people will be able to have a look at that. The actual agreement itself kicks in, I think, August 1st.
Okay.
And that means that for 99% of Ukrainian products, duties and customs go to zero.
Oh, wow.
In terms of exporting to Canada, and no quotas or limits on that. There's only a very small list of items that are still restricted in the agricultural area. But apart from that, it's whoever manages to get in there into that market and sell. We've been trying to help some Ukrainians get a head start, so we had a delegation of Ukrainian agricultural processors, people who package fruit, fruit juice, for example. It seems like a very promising area. People in the cookie and chocolate business and others. So we've tried to partner them with Canadian distributors and supermarkets. Last week we had 17 Ukrainian IT companies.
Oh, wonderful.
who were attending Canada's sort of leading get-together of IT chief executives. So we're trying to build those business-to-business, B2B contacts so that people can actually use this agreement. Because agreements are great.
If no one knows about them, if no one knows the advantages that they can have.
That's right. So we've got a whole project. It's called the Canada-Ukraine Trade and Investment Support Project, run by Conference Board of Canada and the Canada-Ukraine Chamber of Commerce. And they provide very practical assistance to companies in Ukraine to export to Canada and to Canadian companies interested in investing into Ukraine.
So tell me then a bit more about, because you're right, it's an agreement, but I know that so many of us are unclear as to what is included in this free trade agreement. And if we talk about primarily these small entrepreneurs, the SMEs that can really take advantage of this, what do they have to look forward to?
Well, I think for Ukrainian SMEs, you have in Canada a market of 36 million people who are very open to products from around the world. And, you know, it's a challenge to get onto shelves. There's competition for shelf space. So part of what we're doing is we're giving some training to Ukrainian companies. How do you make that elevator pitch? How do you position your product so that it appeals to North American markets, Canada, but also the U.S.? So we're also thinking of Canada as a kind of a gateway into the Americas for Ukrainian business.
And how would an average business owner or entrepreneur access these type of resources?
Cutis.org, cutis.org is the name of our project website. It's also got a social media profile on both Facebook and Twitter, so you can work on that. We've also, through another one of our projects, Project for Local Economic Development, helped set up an association of SME exporters in central Ukraine, area around Kremenchuk, Horishny Plavny, south end of Poltava Oblast, near the Dnipro River. Visited them last week, so they're thinking about areas like textiles. How can you bundle the capacities of Ukrainian textile producers so that they could get long-term Canadian orders? So
who's this available to? Is it just for this central area, or can any Ukrainians go and access this?
You know, for the project, it's anyone across Ukraine. The association is starting from the center and wanting to build out. But you know, as I said, we've built the infrastructure. We have built it, and we hope they will come.
And this is useful, getting this advertisement out. So if and let's talk about the other side, because a lot of our viewers, most of our viewers, are in the West. What can they do for this Canadians who are interested in investing here in Ukraine and helping with this export?
I think one thing is actually to look for products or ask for them. If you've been to a trade show or something and you've seen something made in Ukraine that really appealed to you, ask at your local supermarket, ask at your local food specialty store. If you're in the IT sector and you're looking for people with very solid mathematics backgrounds and engineering backgrounds who can help you crack key issues that you might be facing, think about you know, the 100,000 plus software engineers working in Ukraine, largely serving foreign markets. So those are very practical things people can do.
So we're looking at the products, and this is something I think a lot of people look at. The free trade agreement, maybe they look more at it's about products, but it's also about services. It's about the IT industry.
Well, this stage of the agreement is about goods. We're looking at Phase 2 being about services, but the services side at the moment probably even dominates. You know, looking at harder to get statistics because software flows via the internet and is not as easy to count as widgets or cartons of apple juice or something like that. But I'd say there's probably 2 times more in software being sold to Canada than there is of goods at the moment. Now, that's good for Ukraine. doesn't require any natural resources being exhausted. It just requires brains being applied to issues.
But Ukraine does also have amazing products that it sells. What are some of the major areas of exchange, import, and export?
Well, I think at the moment what we're seeing is things like railway equipment, railway wheels, axles, that sort of thing. We're seeing concentrated apple juice and other forms of fruit products, Ukraine being a pretty fertile place, and Canada, much of Canada being a bit colder. So there's a complementarity there. We're seeing some electronic equipment as well. And from Canada, we're seeing coal. You think coals to Newcastle, but no. With the conflict in Ukraine, with the various restrictions on trade across the line of contact, a number of Ukrainian steel producers now buy part of their metallurgical coal, coking coal, in Canada. So that's naturally good for Canadian miners, but it's also good for maintaining Ukraine's iron and steel production.
Wow, this is excellent news. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Glad to be with you, and if any of your viewers are around Kiev here in June, come on and join in our public activities.
Great. So don't just leave on June 11th. Stay as well.
Stick around.
If you're in Ukraine, make sure you're here to check out some of the things that are going on.
Yep.
So thank you very much. We were joined today by Roman Waschuk, the Ambassador of Canada, and we had a great discussion about the advantages of the Free Trade Agreement, as well as the 150th anniversary of the Confederation of Canada. Thank you and have a great day.